The Roman Empire, a civilization that gave us law, architecture, and a blueprint for power that echoes to this day. But behind the marble facades and the triumphant arches lies a darker truth. A truth written in blood. And not just the blood of conquered enemies, but the blood of family, the blood of mothers. We are taught to revere the bond between a mother and her child as sacred, unbreakable. But in the corridors of Imperial Rome, this bond was not a source of love, but a source of conflict. A political liability. A death sentence. The most powerful men in the world, the Roman emperors, were also some of history's most notorious matricides. Welcome to Dark Chronicles. Today, we are not just telling stories of murder. We are dissecting the most unnatural crime imaginable. We will investigate why Roman emperors, men who commanded legions and ruled continents, felt compelled to commit the ultimate act of betrayal, the murder of their own mothers. This is not a story about individual monsters. It is a story about a system of power so absolute, so corrupting, that it turned sons into assassins and mothers into political targets. Before we delve into this abyss of familial betrayal, I want to ask you a question. What do you think is the most powerful motivator for human action? Love, fear, or ambition? Write your answer in the comments. By the end of this video, your perspective might change. And now let the investigation begin. To understand this pattern of matricide, we must first understand the unique and powerful role of the Imperial Mother in Rome. She was not just the emperor's parent. She was the Augusta, a title of immense prestige and political influence. She was the living link to the dynasty, the symbol of continuity, and often the true architect of her son's rise to power. Women like Livia, the wife of Augustus, and Agrippina the Younger, the mother of Nero, were not passive figures. They were master politicians, skilled negotiators, and ruthless players in the great game of Roman power. They managed imperial finances, controlled political appointments, and even commanded the loyalty of legions. They were, in many ways, co-rulers. And therein lies the seed of conflict. What happens when the son, the emperor, wants to assert his own authority? What happens when his ambitions clash with his mother's? What happens when the very woman who gave him life becomes the greatest obstacle to his absolute power? This is not just a story of personal hatred. It is a story of a fundamental political problem in the Roman imperial system, the undefined role of the Empress Mother. She had all the power, but no official title. She was the ultimate insider and the ultimate threat. This is the kind of deep, unfiltered history we explore on Dark Chronicles. We don't just tell you what happened, we tell you why. If you believe that history is more than just dates and names, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are about to uncover a pattern of psychological horror that defined the Roman Empire. Our first case study is the most infamous matricide in history. A story so bizarre, so theatrical, that it sounds like a Greek tragedy. It is the story of the Emperor Nero and his mother, Agrippina the Younger. Agrippina was the ultimate imperial mother, a great-granddaughter of Augustus. She was ambition incarnate. She had clawed her way to the top, poisoning her husband, the Emperor Claudius, to place her 16-year-old son, Nero, on the throne. She saw Nero not as her son, but as her creation, an extension of her own will. For the first few years of his reign, she was the true ruler of Rome. But Nero grew tired of being his mother's puppet. He fell in love with Poppaea Sabina, a woman of noble birth whom Agrippina despised. The power struggle escalated. Agrippina threatened to support Nero's rival Britannicus for the throne. Nero had Britannicus poisoned. By 59 AD, Nero decided that his mother had to die. But how do you kill the most powerful woman in Rome, a woman revered as a living goddess? Nero's solution was not a simple assassination. It was a piece of macabre theater. His first attempt was a masterpiece of evil engineering. He invited Agrippina to his villa at Baiae, a seaside resort. He had a special boat constructed, designed to collapse and sink at sea. He hosted a lavish banquet for his mother, showered her with affection, and then sent her off on the collapsible ship. As the boat rode into the bay, the mechanism was triggered. The lead-weighted canopy above Agrippina's couch collapsed, but it was foiled by the high sides of the couch, which held firm. The crew then tried to capsize the boat, but Agrippina, a strong swimmer, survived the ordeal and swam to shore, realizing she had just survived an assassination attempt by her own son. Humiliated and panicked, Nero abandoned subtlety. He sent his assassins. When they entered her villa, Agrippina knew her time had come. According to the historian Tacitus, she faced her killers, bared her womb, and said, "Strike here, for this bore Nero." What does this story tell us about the psychology of power? Nero didn't just want his mother dead. He wanted to erase her in a spectacular, almost mythical way. Do you think this was a sign of madness or a calculated political act? Share your psychological analysis in the comments. Let's dissect the mind of a matricide. Nero may have been the most theatrical, but he was not the first to eliminate his mother from the political stage. Let us look at his own predecessor, the Emperor Caligula, and his mother, Agrippina the Elder. Agrippina the Elder was the granddaughter of Augustus, and a woman of immense popularity and ambition. She was the wife of the beloved General Germanicus, and the mother of 9 children, including the future Emperor Caligula. After her husband's suspicious death, she became an outspoken critic of the reigning Emperor Tiberius. Tiberius, a paranoid and ruthless ruler, saw her as a threat. In 29 AD, he had her arrested on charges of treason and exiled to the barren island of Pandateria. There she was starved, beaten, and subjected to constant humiliation. She died in 33 AD, officially from starvation, but almost certainly on Tiberius's orders. And where was Caligula during all this? He was a young man, living in the court of Tiberius, the very man who was destroying his family. He did nothing to save his mother. He remained silent, biding his time. His survival depended on his ability to play the loyal, unassuming courtier. When Caligula finally became emperor in 37 AD, he made a great show of devotion to his dead mother. He sailed to Pandateria, personally collected her ashes, and brought them back to Rome for a magnificent public funeral. He deified her, posthumously granting her the title of Augusta. It was a brilliant act of political propaganda, using the memory of his martyred mother to legitimize his own rule. But the evil had been done. Caligula's inaction, his complicity in his mother's slow, agonizing death, reveals a chilling truth about the Roman imperial family. Survival often required the sacrifice of one's own blood. Unearthing these stories requires a deep dive into ancient sources, cross-referencing accounts from Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio. It's a complex historical investigation. If you value this commitment to detailed, evidence-based storytelling, consider supporting Dark Chronicles on Patreon. Your support allows us to continue these deep dives into the darkest chapters of history. The link is in the description. Our final case study takes us to the Severan dynasty and the Emperor Caracalla. Here, the story is not one of direct matricide, but of a son whose actions drove his mother to suicide. It is a story of a family that devoured itself. Caracalla co-ruled with his younger brother Geta. The two hated each other. Their father, the Emperor Septimius Severus, had warned them on his deathbed to be good to each other, enrich the army, and damn the rest. They ignored his advice. In 211 AD, Caracalla lured Geta to a meeting in their mother's apartments, supposedly for a reconciliation. It was a trap. Caracalla's centurions burst in and murdered Geta in the arms of his own mother, Julia Domna. She was drenched in her son's blood. Julia Domna was one of the most powerful women in Roman history. A Syrian intellectual, she was the true political force behind her husband's reign. After his death, she tried to mediate between her 2 sons, but failed. The murder of Geta was a devastating blow, but she was a pragmatist. She knew her survival and the stability of the empire depended on her alliance with her remaining son, the murderer. For the next 6 years, she continued to wield immense power, managing the empire's administration while Caracalla was on military campaigns. But the relationship was poisoned. There were even rumors of an incestuous relationship between them, a desperate attempt to recreate the lost family unit. In 217 AD, Caracalla was assassinated. Upon hearing the news, Julia Domna, who was already suffering from breast cancer, chose to end her own life. She starved herself to death. With her sons gone and her dynasty at an end, she had nothing left to live for. Caracalla did not physically kill his mother, but his fratricide, his brutality, and his destruction of their family created the psychological and political conditions that led to her suicide. He killed her spirit long before her body gave up. This story is a powerful reminder of how family dynamics can be twisted and destroyed by absolute power. Share this video if you believe that understanding these historical patterns can help us recognize the warning signs of tyranny and abuse in our own time. And reflect, is it possible to hold absolute power without becoming a monster? Nero, Caligula, Caracalla. 3 emperors, 3 mothers destroyed. Their stories are not isolated incidents. They are the symptoms of a diseased system. A system where power was absolute, paranoia was rampant, and family was just another political tool. The Roman Empire had no clear rules for succession, and no defined role for the women who were at the center of power. This created a toxic environment of competition, jealousy, and betrayal. The Imperial Mothers were forced to become master manipulators to survive and to ensure their sons' futures. But in doing so, they often created the very monsters who would eventually destroy them. This is the ultimate tragedy of the Roman imperial family. The same ambition that drove these women to place their sons on the throne was the same ambition that made them a threat in their sons' eyes. The mothers were the architects of their own destruction. The evil things Roman emperors did to their own mothers were not just acts of personal cruelty. They were the inevitable outcome of a political system that had no checks, no balances, and no room for both an emperor and a powerful empress mother. In the zero-sum game of Roman power, only one could survive. Which of these stories did you find the most disturbing? Leave a final comment. Was it Nero's theatrical cruelty, Caligula's cold complicity, or Caracalla's destructive ambition? We want to know your thoughts. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dark heart of Roman power. Our next chronicle will explore the evil ritual that created history's most powerful empire. If you don't want to miss it, and if you believe that history holds the most important lessons for humanity, subscribe and become part of our community of historical investigators. The past is never dead. It's not even past.